Today we're going to be talking about rates of change and slope, getting into the good parts of algebra. So we're going to be learning how to find slope given a graph. We're going to be able to find slope given either 2 points or a table, eventually working this out. So first of all, we're going to talk about rates of change. Now, what a rate of change is a change of your y values or your dependent variables divided by the change of your x values or your independent variables. So it's always going to be a fraction. This rate of change is always a fraction. Typically when we talk about rates of change like miles per hour or points in a game, it's per 1 unit measure. So if I'm driving 70 miles per hour, I'm going to travel 70 miles in 1 hour. Very rarely are we going to be talking about things in like a 7-hour span. Yeah, I drove 490 miles in 7 hours. Now that doesn't make sense to us. We want to base down into 1 hour or per game or per teacher or per 1 unit of measure. This is what this allows us to do. Now the fancy word for this is slope. Right? The slope of a line. Right? What that is, it is the amount of rise over the amount of run. This is always expressed as a fraction. Usually as a fraction. Especially when we're looking at graphs, which we're going to start with today. It's always going to be a fraction. Rise, the amount of rise we have. This can either be going up or it can be going down. The run, always run to the right. Just like you're reading a book. We want to read the line as we're reading a book. Left to right. Always remember that. So when we look at these graphs, it becomes a counting game. We're going to be counting how many units of change we have. So if we're given a graph, there's not too much calculation to do, besides the fact maybe we have to reduce something. Maybe we have to reduce a fraction. So remember, it's the amount of rise over the run. I'm going to keep that up here. Rise over run. Change of your y values over the change of your x values. Now when we're looking at one of these graphs, we're given something like this, and these graphs are the ones in your notes. You want to find out where our line crosses like the grid lines. That makes it nice and easy. So I see that it's crossing here, and it's also crossing here. And I'm just identifying those 2 points. It's also crossing here, and down here, and up here, and so forth. Now there's going to be a pattern to our slope. It's going to start looking like a ladder. Now when we calculate this, we always start with the rise. And again, we're reading this left to right. So pick any point. Let's say I want to start right here. In order to get to this point, I need to go up. And I'm going up 1, 2, 3 units up. I run to the right 1 unit. I can keep this going. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and over 1 unit. 1, 2, 3, and over 1 unit. So our slope to this line is 3 over 1, which reduces just to 3. It's a positive 3. It's going up 3, which is a positive way, and to the right 3, which is positive. Typically for slope, we refer this to as our m value. M always stands for slope. So let's look at our second graph. Now again, we want to find where it's hitting the grid lines. I see it's hitting a grid line here. And the grid lines, I mean like these horizontal and vertical lines that are crisscrossing. As I follow along, I see there's another one here, see another one here, another one here, and so forth. Now, as I read this left to right, I see that my line is falling to the right. So something going down in a descending manner means that that is negative. So if you're going up, it's positive, down, it's negative. So as I go from this point to this point, if I was to go up and over, I'm never going to hit that line, so it's not a positive slope. But I'm going to go down 2, and now over 3. Down 2, over 3. So again, my rise is -2 because I'm going down. And again, I'm running to the right, and that is 3. So my slope for the second line, for the second graph, is a -2/3 because it's going down. The next graph we have looks like this. So on your paper, start trying to find where this line is crossing these grid lines. So I see it's crossing. There's a point, there's a point, there's a point, there's a point, and so forth. So the first thing you want to think about, how do you go from left to right with these points? I see I'm going up 1, and I'm counting over 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, over 4. So the slope for this one is 1 over 4. We always want to leave this as a fraction. We don't want to kind of divide it out and make it 0.25, because it makes it kind of hard on a graph to do that. There's sometimes when we do want to write it as a decimal, but this is not one of them. So we can do this with any kind of graph. So the things to remember, the first thing I would always focus with, first of all, 2 things. Is it positive slope or a negative slope? Which one is it? If it is going up to the right, from left to right, if it's going up, it's positive, so we have to go up. If it's a negative slope, it is going down. The second thing is which numbers go on top and which numbers go on the bottom when you are writing out your fraction. Remember, rise over run. Think about rise over run. Repeat that in your head. Rise over run. Going up and down comes first, that's on top. And we're always running to the right. So this is the first part of the lesson. I will see you in the next one.